Okay, so this is drawing number 12, and today we are going to be looking at ellipses. Now, an ellipse, when we look at something like a roll of tape, an ellipse is, if we look at the circle dead on, it's a perfect round circle. But if we turn the circle, it then turns into what we call an ellipse. And you'll see the distance between the top and the bottom of the circle, just from your eye point watching this video, the distance from here down to the end is less than the width from the side here. This width doesn't change, but that ellipse shape does. So it works in the same kind of way, where we start out with drawing planes, but as we draw it, we need to be able to rotate and squish that circle so that we could be looking at the circle almost as though it's flat. And then what happens if we actually look at the underside of a circle? So what we do is we're going to start off with drawing a plane and a flat plane. I've got my two vanishing points over here, so I'm going to take one at the bottom down here and take that over to my vanishing point. This one here at the bottom, so far away from our horizon line, is going to be very open, if you like. Now, the judging part is that this needs to be an equal square. Depending on where this point is in relationship to the vanishing points, you'll have to kind of judge it based on how it looks. But that's about the same kind of square shape that I'm looking for. So I take that to my vanishing point. Okay, so we've got kind of a square here. I then need to divide it by 2 and take that to my vanishing point. And that will give us 4 squares. Now, when we draw an ellipse, we need to get the circle to touch in these 4 points here. And we then need to draw a curve that goes from this point here to the other point. But this is tricky because we've got an obtuse angle here, and then we've got acute angles here. So that means more than 90 degrees and less than 90 degrees. So when I'm drawing this, I want the line to be flat here and flat here, but I've got to get it to curve really nicely. So I use kind of like a mental aid, if you like. But I think about a metal ruler. Now, a metal ruler is nice and flexy, so we can actually see a curve. Now imagine with a much smaller ruler, if I put the ruler on that line, and then I put the other end of the ruler on that line, what I'd be trying to do would be to bend that ruler so it was flat here and flat here, but making a nice, smooth, what we call transitionary curve. Now, what that means is, so I imagine that metal ruler coming down here, curving nicely around and being flat to this line by the time it gets over there. Now, the way that this pattern works is that this curve will be mirrored in a curve up here. So I have it flat here and flat here, and that curve will come over here. Do you see? So those two curves are pretty similar. And then this one here, the acute angle, it's going to be a much tighter curve. So do you see there? There's that quite tight curve, and then on the other side, it will be the same. Okay, I've got too many lines here. So I need to take that out and maybe erase out a little bit of the extras. There we go. And I'm just going to smooth that out a little bit. I mean, obviously working with freehand, we've got a little bit of a distortion, that it's not perfectly technical drawing accurate. But as a sketch, this works really well. Now, what we then need to do is, if this was, let's say, like a coffee mug or a really tall tube that we're trying to draw here, what I would do is I would extend this up, and just like how we've done in the past, we're going to draw some boxes. So the next point here, I'm going to draw, that will go to my vanishing point, and this one here, and you'll see quite a dramatic difference, obviously, in the box itself. It's far less open. Do you see? So this was a really big square down here. Now it's got really thin, but the system is still the same. So I take this line to my vanishing point and this line to my vanishing point, and I've got these two matching squares and these two. Now this one here, it still has to be flat here and flat here, so that will make a smooth curve to there, and then another smooth curve from there to there. These acute angles will be much more pronounced and far more different. But if we've done it right, which I'm a little bit out, what we want is that curve to come to the same edge as that. So I could actually take the side of this up here, and that's the point that I want to hit. Do you see? So now we have this tube that we can draw here. So for today's class, what I want you to do is one tube like this, where we get into that smooth transitionary curve. You don't need to shade it because we're coming on to that later. But that's tube number one. The system does not change if we do a tube on its side. Now this one, we can draw a plane, a vertical plane here. And then I'm going to take this line to that vanishing point over here, and the same over to here. And then I've got to judge that square. So that looks about the square's height. So all my lines here are vertical. And then this point goes to what? Vanishing point. But again, I've got 4 squares. These ones are going to be the acute ones, which are really tight, and these ones are going to be the slightly less so, being obtuse angles. Right, like that. And then now you'll notice that I'm not rotating my paper because I'm wanting to keep these vanishing points in the same spot. But if you want to, feel free to do that, to rotate your paper, because it's easier to draw a curve this way than it is to do one this way, and certainly like that. You have to use a lot of arm movement. Okay, so then go to my vanishing point, vanishing point, choose an end point to the tube, come across to my vanishing point, and vertical, there. I'll also come across with the edge, so that's the furthest point at the bottom there. I'm going to come across, and the top, and now I can make my squares in here. That goes off to the vanishing point, and I've got those 2 squares again. This one here, and this one here, and then the acute angle, and you'll see that it hits that line going across the side here. So we're going to come over there and there. There we go. So there we have a vertical tube and then a horizontal tube. Obviously, for the tube to go this way, it would be the same kind of thing. So have a go with that and see if you can map them out. You can use an eraser to clean up your lines a little bit, but remember that this is a sketch. We're not drawing accurate technical drawings. We're just trying to be able to sketch something that has circles in it and curves in it.